Hello there, or perhaps I should say bonjour. You are listening to the Eiffel Tower podcast. My name's Oliver G. This is a show all about Paris and France and the French and the language and things to do in Paris, which I'll talk about at great length in a second. But first, have you noticed there's a lot of negativity online at the moment? A lot of people posting sort of, oh, isn't the world terrible right now? Or, oh, I'm so bored in lockdown. I'll tell you what, I can guarantee you are not going to get that kind of stuff around here. This is an escape. It's a travel show after all. And what I want to do is transport you in particular to Paris today. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to focus on the positives. That's what you're here for. So in this episode, you're going to hear from some other Francophiles around the world who have sent in cool bucket lists of things to do. What do I mean bucket lists? Well, I'll explain everything after the jingle. Let's get into it. Okay, so if you missed the last episode and you can't be bothered going back and listening to it, the idea is this. The Paris bucket list is 5 things that you want to do in Paris this year. In fact, that you plan to do. The only rules really are that you can't have done these things before, and that you're meant to list them in order of difficulty. And the whole point of this was a couple years ago I started this up with some friends because there were always things that I wanted to do in the city that I just never got around to. And the whole point of it was that some of them were really easy. Like, you know, this is probably the same in every city, but there might be a cafe that you've always planned to go to, but you just never had any reason. Or maybe a restaurant. Or maybe if you take it a few steps further, a museum. And then the whole point of the last one is that you put something a little bit crazy like Disneyland or, you know, stay in a 5-star hotel or the kind of things that you just don't do on a day-to-day basis. So the last episode was me and my wife Lena sharing ours. And this episode from last week brought in so many responses from you guys sending in your own list of 5 things. It was an unprecedented amount. I mean, I'm not exaggerating. There must have been at least 100 people who sent in a full list of 5 things to do. Probably more, whether it was on Instagram, whether it was an email, on a Facebook, on Patreon especially. There were a lot of comments. About 50 people sent it in the comments there. And what I've done is I've gone through, using what I know about Paris, the things that I've heard are good, the things that I know are good, is I went together, got everything from these hundreds, maybe thousands of tips that came in, and I put it into a top 100 list. So before we get into today's guests, let me tell you what's on that list, because I highly encourage you to check out the story on the top of my website, theeiffeltower.com. These are 100 things to do in Paris in 2021 that are well beyond the other boring lists I've seen on the internet, because I did look around at some of them. And they all seem to have climbed the Eiffel Tower, walk down the Champs-Elysees, go to the Tuileries Garden. Like, come on, they're so boring. There are so many boring articles like that on the internet. And I fear, or at least I sense, that a lot of like interns around the world for various magazines and newspapers are just copying each other with no imagination. Instead, on the list that I've put together with everyone's help, you've got this awesome checklist with things like spend a night in the Sacré-Cœur Basilica, which interestingly you can do for like €5 and 1 hour of praying. That's the price to do it. There are things like another one I like was find all the locations from the 1950s movie, I think it is, the Red Balloon, the Ballon Rouge. Things like that. Just think, you're going to hear more of them in this episode, because what I did is I contacted 3 people who'd sent in particularly good lists, and I said, hey, you want to be on the show? Thanks for sending in the list. Thanks for listening to the show. Let's talk about it. So you're going to hear from 3 people in a row right now who sent in cool lists, and they're explaining themselves. So without further ado, let's start with the first one. It's Irene White, an actress in LA. Let's get into it. Can you hear me, Irene?
I can. Bonjour, Oliver.
Bonjour, and welcome to the Eiffel Tower podcast.
Merci beaucoup. I'm so happy to be here.
Now, before we get into your intriguing list, just out of curiosity, like what level of Francophile are you? 10 being absolutely obsessed, 1 being don't really know why I'm on the podcast.
I'm absolutely a 10, 100%.
Where did this come from?
I went to Paris the first time in 1998 with my brother, and we were on our way to Italy, and I thought, I don't care about Paris. It's an afterthought. I know I'm going to love Italy. And then I came up in the metro at the Place de la République, and I remember stepping off, like up those stairs, and it was like, j'ai eu le coup de foudre. It was like being hit in the face with a frying pan. I was like, where has this person been my entire life? I just absolutely fell in love.
Wow. And so was it when you came out of that metro, was it like looking straight up to the statue of Marianne there? Or
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And I was just completely unprepared for it. Like I said, I thought, oh, Italy's going to be where I'm going to feel at home. And I just, honestly, I get the French people. I've only had good experiences there.
And to give people the sort of context for what I'm about to read as well, how many times have you been back?
10 times.
Okay, so here we go. We can get straight into the list. The first, we'll brush over the first two, I think. Visit the cats at the Montmartre Cemetery. I assume you're a cat person.
Yeah, very much so.
and did you know about the cats before I sort of started featuring them on the show?
No, I had no idea.
And what about the Hemingway bar? Is that something that's been...
So it's funny, the last time I was in Paris in 2018, I chickened out from going in there. And I thought, I'll be uncomfortable, or I won't know how to handle myself. I don't know. And so then when I heard your podcast, I was like, I'm going to go there next time.
Oh, that's cool, because you're not the first person I've heard of that was like somewhat afraid to go in there. I think it's, I don't know what it is about that place.
Yeah, I don't know either, but I was outside of it. And then I was like, oh, gosh, I'll do this later. I'll do this later.
And do you have any tips for people to overcome that? I guess you haven't yet.
No, but I'm about to.
So what's the difference?
Well, I heard you talking to Claudine. Was that her name?
Yeah.
And I thought, oh man, you know what? I should go in there and do that. What was I thinking?
Good. Okay. Well, I hope that you do that. Be prepared for the price tag.
Okay.
But number 3 on your list has a much smaller price tag, and I want to start on this here. You want to do your laundry at a Parisian laundromat like a real local.
Listen, I tried to do it once. It's another failure. I couldn't figure out the machines, and I was using my dictionary. I couldn't figure it out. So I just took my clothes back to wherever I was staying. I don't know. There's just something about a laundromat to me that feels not just authentic in Paris, but it's like where real people go in the world is a laundromat. And my goal every time I go to Paris is to have somebody ask me the time or ask me for directions. And that would just make me feel like a local to be able to do my laundry.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. And I know, but seriously, like I've heard of, in fact, Lena, my wife, she got her stuff locked into a washing machine once. And so there is something of a hurdle, but beware that you don't go into the, not far from République is the Laundro, the Lavomatic, the Speakeasy. Maybe that's where you were when it didn't work. You were trying.
And they were like, what are you doing here with your laundry, lady?
All these hip people lined up trying to get in, and you're just standing there with all your dirty clothes. Anyway, the other two that I want to talk about is you want to have a meal on the Bustronome, Paris bus. Mm-hmm. I've never done that. What's the appeal?
Well, honestly, I follow them on Instagram, and I know it seems very touristy, but I think in the same way that I did a bateau bus one time. Is that what it's called?
Sure.
The boat. And I really had a great experience. And I thought, gosh, you know what? To see things while I'm drinking wine, eating coq au vin, boy, wouldn't that be great?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how expensive it is. I don't know how cheesy it is.
Yeah. Well, it's much better than taking a bottle of wine on a normal bus.
Which I've never done.
Oh, fair enough.
It's a missed opportunity.
I think we finished now on the last thing on your list, which was by far one of the most unique things that was sent in out of like the 100 responses that we got. You've written that you want to get cast or get cast maybe in the second season of Emily in Paris and Work in Paris.
Yes, that's what I want to do. I devoured Emily in Paris with equal parts disdain and love. I hated that she did not appreciate Paris and that she did not speak French. So I think she needs an auntie who comes over from the United States, who speaks French, who loves Paris, who can really like show her like what she's missing out on. Because I think it was a missed opportunity. And if Darren Star is listening, I'd like to pitch myself.
Maybe he is listening. Darren, if you are listening, I would also like to chat to you, to have you on this podcast. But yeah, that would be really cool. Have you done anything to make it happen?
I contacted my agents And I said, if you hear about casting for Emily in Paris, please submit me. I would 100% be up for it. I'd do a great job and they need me.
I love it. I hope, Irene, that happens. I hope to see you. I would watch Emily in Paris, the second season, just for that. I've yet to watch the first season, but I would watch the second season. If
it's divisive. It's divisive.
That makes a good TV show, I think. But congratulations on a very unique list. And I hope. Thank you. When are you planning to next come to Paris?
Well, as soon as I can, honestly. Okay. Like, I have my passport ready. As soon as I'm allowed.
Okay.
So maybe June or July. I'm not really sure what the deal is, but I'm coming.
If it happens in June, July, I hope you make it through the whole list.
Me too. Thank you so much.
Great. And thanks for being on the show, and thanks for submitting your bucket list.
You're very welcome. This was a pleasure.
That was a cool list, wasn't it? I think if she does make it onto Emily in Paris 2, then, you all heard it here first. So we got the scoop. We got the scoop on the Eiffel Tower. Thank you, Irene, and thanks for your support. Yes, she is a regular Instagram commenter. She often tags her friends, alerting them to the show, which I love. I always love to see people doing that, spreading the word. She's also a Patreon supporter, just like Jackie Williams-Jones, who is our next guest, also from LA by chance. If I had known these two were from LA, I might not have done it, because I do like to spread out across the world. But hey, fun fact, a lot of the listeners to this very show are in California, so maybe statistically it was always going to happen. But Jackie is another regular face. She is a part-time teacher, and she's getting into the old travel agency work at a very unfortunate time, I guess. But this is the time to think about travel, if never before. And here's what happened when I called her on Zoom as well.
Can you hear me, Jackie?
I can hear you well.
Oh, I can hear you well as well. What does it mean, semi-retired? Are you French teaching not anymore, or just like half the vocab?
That would be good. I'm not in the classroom except in the summertime, but I have clients during the week.
Right, okay. And you said also you picked the wrong time to get into travel agents work? Is that?
Yes, I was so excited. I became a travel agent around the end of 2019. And then, of course, 2020 hit. No one's traveling right now. So I'm doing a lot of studying and getting ready for when we can bust out of here and I can get on a plane again, because I actually miss it.
I can imagine that part of study would include things like watching pub quizzes online.
Oh, I loved your pub quizzes. I made it. It was every Saturday, and I found out just about how much I did not know.
Well, hopefully you can impart some knowledge on me this time, because I want to quiz you about your list here, your bucket list for your next trip, which you hope will be in 2021. Maybe we'll cross paths, but there's some things on that. I think we brush over the easy one. Tour the Opera Garnier. Yep, that's a good idea. I want to do the same. Eat in the restaurant on the Eiffel Tower. Is there any reason on that one?
Well, because I'd love to eat at the Jules Verne, but I don't have that kind of money right now. So I'm thinking of the Brasserie 58. For once, I wanted to be like Guy de Maupassant and eat where I could not see the Eiffel Tower, but not because I didn't like it.
Are you one of those people that just loves the tower?
I like the tower, but after having taken over 20 trips with students, I'm sort of over the tower. So my husband and I would drop them off at the tower and they would go up with the group and we'd go around the corner to our favorite cafe.
Which was that?
It's near the entrance to the metro, which I think is Trocadero, either that or Beer Heck. And it's a couple of streets towards the metro station, and then you turn the corner and it's right there. And I would always have a panache.
On this side, the same side of the river that the Eiffel Tower is?
Yes.
Okay, so near the Australian Embassy then?
Probably. I'll have to make sure.
Okay, but now the next on your list was to take a boat ride on the Canal Saint-Martin. Were you thinking one of the ones where you go down all the locks?
There's one where you go, you tour it, and they talk about it, and then you go through the tunnel and end out on the Seine.
Yeah, weirdly, I had that on my bucket list that I did sort of privately 2 years ago. That was my grand finale one. I'd seen it so many times. I was like, it's one of those kind of rainy day events. So instead of saving it for a rainy day, I did it on my birthday and invited all my friends. So I can tip that it's worth doing that if you happen to be here on your birthday.
Well, my birthday's next week, but so I won't be there this time, but I'll be there maybe next January.
All right. Well, happy birthday for next week. But now I want to get into the two that I'm most curious about. You want to see a Paris Saint-Germain football/soccer, I suppose you call it soccer,
Yes.
game. That's quite rare coming from a tourist, especially in America, that want to watch a soccer game.
Who is also a sports fanatic.
Uh-huh.
And it was my husband who suggested that one, which was even more surprising, just to be there and to see it and, and to see how French do sports.
Uh-huh. I think you're in for a treat, They're pretty, soccer in America is a whole different story, but it's almost like a religion in Europe.
Right. But you're talking to the true American football fans. So, from one religion to the next.
But anyway, the last thing on your list I want to talk about is you want to take a Black Paris tour with Monique Wells.
I do.
Did you watch the video that I did with her?
I watched the video and then I saw it again because I participated in something on the 31st of December that was run by a consortium of Black women's groups. And it was like, take a tour of the virtual tour of Black Paris with Monique Wells. And it was your tour, only she would run it ahead and then stop at certain points and elaborate. But I got to see it twice. Now I really want to go.
I didn't know that. So was it like people?
So it was, of course, it was all Zoom. So there were like over 100 women on the Zoom, and Monique was one of the main people giving the tour. And they had Richard Wright's granddaughter, who came on and spoke for a bit. And that was just amazing because you never think of these people having like families.
Yeah. That's true. Hey, that's so cool. So did you get a chance to chat with Monique as well?
No, but I think I sent her an email and thanked her. But I plan to bring friends to Paris. Everybody goes, "Oh, Jackie, I want to go to Paris with you." But of course, they never do. When they want to go, but when you put it together, it's like, okay, but whoever goes is going to have a treat because I am going to see if I can get Monique to give us a small tour.
I think that'll be awesome. And Monique is it's weird that out of a lot of the many guests I had on the show doing those kind of walking videos, that one resonated with a lot of people, and she knows her stuff. So I think you'll be in very safe hands. She might even be listening to us right now. Hello, Monique, if you are.
Hi, Monique.
But Jackie, great list. I hope you get through all 5. But now by being on the show, you've sworn an oath to do all 5 of those things when you come to Paris. So best of luck to you as well.
Well, thank you. I think this is perfect. Now I have to do them.
Brilliant. And maybe we'll cross paths too. Maybe at a PSG game. Who knows?
That's fun. I'll let you know when I come.
So thank you to Jackie. The idea of getting these people together like this is to build the community a little bit. I mean, I know that there are lots of listeners out there because I can see the statistics and the comments and all that, but I don't necessarily know the listeners. So, I don't know. I just had an idea for this episode that it could be fun to get to know a few. If you like this kind of episode, let me know and we can do more. And before we get into the third guest, I just want to say that the reason I picked these people is just because typically one of the things stood out to me on the list. If you were overlooked, you are in the vast majority, so don't feel bad. But if you want to increase your chances of being on the show in the future, I would highly recommend creativity in your answers on these posts. And I'm not going to lie, being a Patreon supporter, because all 3 of today's guests are supporters of the show on Patreon. So that brings us to the third and final guest. It is Sally Porter, who is an amazing woman. If you've ever bought a copy of one of my books in Australia, she is the one who sent it out. Sally Porter in Melbourne, and she had a really good list. She's like a disciple of Paris, and you'll hear it when she explains some of her things, but you can tell that she's thought this one through, and it's nice to get a different accent on the other end of the line. So here she is, Sally Porter, distributor extraordinaire of the Eiffel Towers books. Let's see what she had to say.
Sally Porter, do you hear me?
I do. Hello, Oliver.
Hello. Is that an Australian accent, Sally?
It's a Melbourne Australian accent, Oliver.
Melbourne, Australia. After all these American accents on the show, it's something different. Do you think that there is a big interest in Paris and France among Australians?
I think probably as Australia being so far from Europe, there's more an interest to go to Europe. You know, people want to go and visit perhaps as many countries as they can and have a holiday. Paris in particular probably would be the main part of France that people would go to, the same as a lot of Americans. But I don't know that it's particularly France as compared to just going to Europe. And
do you, like, among your sort of contacts and friends and stuff, are you like the crazy Paris fan, or are there more of you? Like, is it weird in you know, for a woman in Australia to like?
I have a few friends that are interested in France, and they're the ones I travel with, but not many at all. You have to find them through the Alliance or through conversation classes, that sort of thing. I think over this side of the world,
through the Eiffel Tower, even. Sally.
Yes, well, hopefully I've got a few more listening to the podcast. So.
And before we begin on your list, I just want to say a heartfelt thank you for posting all the books. All the Australian books have gone through your hand. So thank you.
No problem.
Thank you. Well, you're very kind. So all you Australians, this is Sally, who has posted your mail. But let's get into your list, Sally. And I'm excited about it because it shows me that you've thought this one through. Some will breeze over and some I want to grill you on. First, the one we can breeze over, Cheese Workshop. You feel like you know so little.
Yeah, sure. The first time I was in there at the market stall, I asked for cheddar. So that was my first mistake. And I've learned since then there's a lot more to cheese in France than cheddar, of which you can't get it anywhere.
And how did they react when you asked for cheddar?
They laughed and said, was I British? And then sold me Comté.
Well, that's a happy ending to the story. The other one, the gallery in the Jardin des Plantes. Do you mean like the museum? Which bit do you mean?
Two bits. The galleries, the natural history, evolution, all that sort of thing, that side of things, but also the big metal and glass greenhouses that are there that have all the plants in them. Beautiful things. In fact, one of them's Australian. I've seen gum trees through the window, so must get to that one day.
You know, I got an email from a listener who said that you can see wallabies in the Jardin des Plantes Zoo if you want to feel even more Australian when you're there.
Maybe not, but I think you can.
Okay, the list becomes intriguing here. The Musée Cognac J or J, perhaps. I've not been to that one. What's the appeal? What is it?
Yeah, it's a collection of paintings, sculptures, furniture by the founder of the La Samaritaine department store. It's all his thing, but I think it's in an old hotel. The funny thing was, I think it's free to get in there as well. So probably everyone spends so much time booking tours and trips where you've got to pay and book for something that this one's just there. I think you can just go in. But it sounds beautiful, and I think everyone that's been there has said it's absolutely lovely.
And that's like kind of one of the beautiful things of the bucket list is you put, you know, for a lot of people even who live in Paris like me, like I've seen that written before. I've seen people recommend it. I've probably even seen that it's free, and I'm always like, yeah, I should get there one day, you know?
Exactly. So it should be an easy one, right?
Easy one. Okay, so that's why you put it number one. I'm kind of going around on the list. I'm going to end with the one that I think will be the hardest. But first, you got the Bibliothèque Nationale de France. You want to go to a library?
Not for the books. Apparently, there's a few parts to this in Paris, but the one I was interested in was here's my French pronunciation, Richelieu site, which has a beautiful old reading room. But to get into it, you need to be a researcher or a student, and I'm working out how I can do that to get a pass because apparently the room is stunning. So anyway, so I can hopefully beg, borrow or steal one of those and get in and tick that off the list.
What, beg, borrow and steal a student?
Just the pass. I think you can stand at the door and take a photo, but I want to get in.
Okay, I want to check that one out too. And I think my French pronunciation is never going to win any awards, but I think you pronounce that word as if you've just been like stabbed with a sword in the stomach and you're breathing your last breath out like Richelieu. I know. That's what I think. Do you want to practice? Can I hear your version?
Okay, Richelieu. Not as good as you.
The last one on your list is the one that captivated me the most. Follow the Arago or the Arago medallions along the Paris Meridian. What on earth are you talking about?
Okay, so once upon a time, the main meridian, I think, for the whole world was through Paris, and that was developed by Arago, and he was, I guess, somebody famous back in the day. But at some stage back in the 1800s, they decided that Greenwich would be the prime meridian, and they took it away from Paris. So I guess it was forgotten. So not that long ago, in the 1990s, they put these medallions running on his old meridian line from the south to the north. I think it's about 8 Ks, which is why it's there as a bit harder to get to, because it's an 8 K walk, or 5 miles for the US people. But there's a set of about 135 medallions just placed at different spots along this walk, and the trick is to try and find them all, and I think it's quite difficult to spot them all. So that's what I want to do. I probably won't be so hard to find, but it might be hard to find them all, and also it's taking a whole day of walking, so that's something that I probably don't always have available when I'm in Paris. But the second part to that was it goes through the Observatory of Paris, which is, with the telescopes and whatever. And apparently the only way you can get into that is to reserve it in writing and send in a stamped self-addressed envelope for a response. And I'm trying to work out how you do that from Australia with a stamp from here. So I think I need a Paris address for that. So it's a little bit complicated, which is why it's the hardest.
I'm going to help you with that one in return for all your postage help for me. I'm sure we can fix that. But that bit's pretty cool. But I'm thinking about the medallions. So for the people at home, I've seen a couple of them. There's one in the Louvre, and there's one out the front of Notre Dame, and there's one on a really random street in Montmartre that I remember finding. But they're about the size of like a baseball, as in the cross section of a baseball, very small-ish, right? And then they're just randomly, right? They're not all out the front or in the middle of famous things. So
no.
Is the idea like you wouldn't even know what side of the street it is on if you're walking from south to north. So my question for you is, do you plan to have the list of all 135 so you can find them, or do you plan to just try and find as many as you can in one 8-kilometer walk?
Well, people have previously listed them, so I would be firstly starting with those persons' lists so I could try and follow a map. It's the same if you follow the Bièvre River. That has a list of medallions as well. That's a similar sort of walk, and somebody's listed them all. So it's more a case of finding them, I think.
Yeah.
But it runs from the Cité Universitaire right up to the periphery up north. So it's a pretty long walk.
I think that will make a really cool, long, live YouTube video. So I think I'm going to steal that from you and do it one day soon. We can call it research to help you prepare. But look, that's a really great list. It shows that you love Paris. So thanks for sending it in, and thanks for all your other help too, Sally.
You're welcome, Oliver.
There you have it, Sally, a fellow Australian. I don't know if everyone knows that I'm Australian as well. I got a lot of Christmas cards this year, ever since I mentioned my address, which is 34 Champs-Élysées. I say my address, it's just my P.O. box. But if you want to send me letters or hate mail or anything, that's where you can do it from now on. And I intend to read some of them out on the show. But I got one recently that said, someone said that they were so glad, it was an Australian that sent it, and they said they were so glad that there was an Australian voice doing a podcast and YouTubing and stuff from Paris, because it seems that everyone else doing it is American. I couldn't possibly comment on that. But anyway, look, before we wind things up, I want to explain what we've done with this mega list so you can have some fun. As I said, I rounded it down to the top 100 things. The top 100 things to do in Paris in 2021. Some of them are super specific to this year. Obviously, everything is in the hopes that things open up again and quickly. But there are super specific things like surfing in I think it was the 15th arrondissement, maybe the 14th. So one of the listeners who sent that in obviously has a good eye on what's happening. There's a like a public space that's going to have like a pool with a wave in it for locals to go surfing. I think it's the 14th arrondissement. It's on the list. Anyway, there are other things that, I didn't put in the ones that were like, I want to get a tattoo or something like that. They're all things that any Francophile would want to do. One of them is illegal. I don't recommend you do the illegal one. But all of them are written, it'll be the top story on theeiffeltower.com. But also, this is what I wanted to point out. I got Eddie, my brother, who's helping out on this show, to also make like a downloadable checklist version. So I know there's so many lists on the internet, but I want to know what your score is. So when you go to that website, you'll be able to click on a button somewhere on the page. It'll say download the checklist. You can download it, print it. There'll be little tick boxes, and you can see what your score is out of 100. And all I ask is that if you do that, you take a picture of it or a screenshot or whatever, and tag me on Instagram or Facebook or whatever, but send it in, and then other people will see it and go, what's this show? I want to check it out. He's got a good list for Francophiles. Spread the word, spread the word. But the idea there is usually Eddie would help me work on bonuses for the members, the Patreon members who make this show exist. This week, we figured it was something that I wanted to share with everybody. So it's public, it's free, and there's not a scroll this week for Patreon supporters. But look, if you're thinking about it, you won't get anything bonus this week. But it's the way to make this show better. It'll allow me to hire people and grow it and so on and so on. Eddie usually does these beautiful scrolls. There's events. I think you know the drill by now. Patreon.com/The Earful Tower. And I'll leave you on this thought. I've been gathering people's stories for an upcoming Patreon event, a show and tell. I asked every single member, do you have an item or an object from Paris with a cool backstory? If so, let me know, and we're going to do a Zoom where people go, well, like in school at show and tell, people go, hey, well, my name is so-and-so, and what I'm holding here is, and I'll tell you this, I've got maybe about 8 to 10 excellent responses. I mean, really excellent. I'm not going to tell you anything about what they are because I think the way we'll do the show will be that they kind of are almost like the punchline to the story sometimes. But I'll tell you one thing. One of the items is illegal and stolen, and I'm kind of surprised that the owner of it wanted to share it with us all, and I hope that doesn't put her off from sharing it, but it's also kind of fun. But I'm not going to tell you what it is. You have to be a member to find out. If you like this show, if it brings you some joy, and you want to sign up for the whole year, you can do that too. You get 2 months for free if you do it. Patreon.com/The Earful Tower. That'll do for me. Thanks to everyone for sharing your lovely bucket lists. It's inspired me too. Now I'm off to tally up my score out of 100. I'll share it on Instagram. Let's see if you can beat me. That'll do for now. I'm Oliver G. This is The Earful Tower. Merci beaucoup.